Am I talking too fast?
Nope.
What am I talking about? Too much coffee.
Hey everyone, we're back here at our great friends Surf the Greats here in Toronto. Why? Because they keep having us, so we keep coming back. But we are here to talk about a brand new Fujifilm camera, the X-H1. This is a very exciting release. It is a camera that really bumps up the power of the X-T2 and gives some additional video functionality, sort of stealing a little bit from the GFX as well. And with me to talk about this, and who spent some time with the camera this week as well, is fashion photographer Nick Merzetti. And we had a great week with this camera. So Nick, talk to me about what you did with the camera and what that experience was like.
So I'm a Canon shooter.
Yeah.
I have a Fuji X-T2 and I absolutely love it. I use it all the time. But for studio work, I always stick with my Canon for a couple of reasons. It's more stable, it's more sturdy. I know exactly what I'm going to get. I find myself not as finicky with the dials or the settings, and I can get things done more quickly. I wanted to do a fashion editorial, 7 looks, full day, really run it through its paces. Test out the autofocus, test out the ISO, use some natural light, use flash, and honestly I was really impressed. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
What's the first impression that you had with the X-H1 in terms of like you put it in your hands?
Oh, yeah, okay, hand feel, like, hand feel, amazing.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it's such a big deal to me, and I think to every photographer and videographer. My Canon, I can just let it dangle from my fingers. I don't have to think about it. Like it's always there. The grip is great and amazing. The X-T2, I love it. I take it with me everywhere. But it feels a little more like a toy, and that's fine. It's beautiful and it gets the job done. This does not. This feels amazing in my hand. And with the grip attached, it's like, it's chunky in the right way. My fingers wrap around in the right way.
And you move around a lot on set. Like you're not just moving laterally, you are actually moving up and down. You're moving on a vertical and horizontal plane when you shoot.
Juking?
Yeah. So you need some stability there.
Honestly, this front grip, I know they listen to some photographers. It makes all the difference. And I know it's something that seems superficial, but it feels like a professional camera. Like, well done. I love the way it feels in my hand. It made a huge difference to me.
As a photographer, you use the eyepiece and the EVF predominantly, but I did notice a couple of times, especially when you're trying to get really, really low and you can't actually get your body down where you need to see it, you're able to use the LCD.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Oh, thank God this is for this one, because this entire point of this editorial was we were really playing with perspective and going really low, either 3/4 or full bodies, and just trying to get some like weird perspective. And like I was down there, and then like I was like, oh, thank God, because like your head's against the floor. So this is like was way better. It made my life so much easier.
Yeah.
Really.
Now, functionally though, I mean, my experience was that it was very similar to use compared to the X-T2. Like it didn't feel like I had to relearn a new system in any way. How was your experience there?
Yeah, pretty much the same. All the dials were in the same place. There's no learning curve really, just some of the new features. And some of the, I think we'll talk about it, some of the ways in which, face detect and stuff work that I was a little bit confused by at first, but I mean, that's natural, just getting used to a camera.
Yeah, and that was actually my experience as well with the camera, is that it feels beefier, not just because of its sort of hand grip redesign, but also I think the body is about 20% thicker, it's magnesium alloy, it's more scratch resistant, that type of thing, and you can feel that compared to the X-T2, for sure. So I think like out in the field, I'd worry less about getting the camera damaged, for sure. I think that looks like what they did was try to listen to what photographers were saying about the camera, and if they want to play in the big leagues with some of the other big cameras, that they have to start introducing these kind of designs in order for it to stand up. Let's talk about the functionality, because I know one of the things that this camera has now is improved autofocus and some improved autofocus features. What was your experience like with that?
Honestly, I was really impressed. I think for a couple of reasons I'll get into, but when I looked through the viewfinder, the thing that was most impressive to me was the OLED display inside. I've used the X-T2 for a while. I'm always aware I'm looking through an EVF, always. Not with this. After about an hour, I actually totally forgot. And that's the first for me. And I've used the new Sony and stuff, and maybe I'd have that same experience, I'm not sure. I used it for a bit, but I was really impressed. So because of that, I felt like it was easier to focus. I noticed right away that it kind of knew what I wanted to do. And for me, that's great. Whatever makes my life easier is fantastic. So the facial awareness was amazing, comparable to like the brand new mirrorless I've seen from other companies. So at first I was a little bit confused because there's a couple of ways to set up the autofocus with facial awareness. So I would be, my area would be set somewhere else, and I would be a little confused as to why I wasn't tracking the face, and that gave me some frustration. But I think you figured it out. So
yeah, and so I had the exact same problem where when I did the video shoot with it, and I switched lenses, and I'm kind of hand-holding it because of the camera's stability is really good, and I'm seeing it track the face, but it's not focusing on it. And I'm like, well, it's working, but it's just not focusing. And I'm panicking because we only had like 10 minutes before we had to roll out a location. And I just basically turned the lens to manual because I was like, I can't deal with this right now. Turns out that's user error. I mean, we don't really get the manual when we get pre-production models, right? So we have to just kind of like figure out what's going on. And as it turns out, there's two modes. There is sort of an area, and then there's like sort of a wide. And when it's on like a specific spot area, it prioritizes that area and doesn't necessarily work with the face recognition until the face enters into that little area. And then if you set it on that wide, now it prioritizes the face. And so neither of us knew that. And when I actually went and changed those settings, it did work better. My experience was it still wasn't working as quickly and as well as I wanted it to. I did change the settings so that the reaction time was faster and those types of things. And certainly reacted quicker, but the accuracy still wasn't as good as I had hoped. I'm only saying that because I'm a bit spoiled. I'm used to now Canon's dual pixel autofocus, especially that they have in the new C200 and the C300. And that is so amazing that I kind of hold everything to that. And so is the technology and the face recognition here good? It's excellent. It's amazing. It's really great. When I had it on a gimbal, when I had it handheld, that facial recognition, when it's working, works really well. It's still not as good as Canon autofocus, the dual pixel autofocus, but pretty cool feature, definitely. And it's great to see that it worked for you in the stills mode as well.
Oh, it definitely made my life easier, especially when you're shooting wide and up close and your perspective is changing so quick. There's no focus on recompose, and having to not like move the stick around to change to find the face. That was a huge help. Made my life a lot easier.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience and mention a few things that I think are not totally related to stills, but there's some massive improvements that are happening in this camera when it comes to video. And I think this is a mark for them to say we are getting Sony and Panasonic in our sights, and we want to compete for that market. This is their first entree into that. And it's a camera that has some improved video functionality, and there's a few things that they've done there. One is that it's still a 420 8-bit camera for video. It does do 422 8-bit out, which if you're doing sort of what I call light broadcast. But one of the really cool things they have in the camera now is if you go into the film emulation setting, they have Eterna. And Eterna is sort of the most prolific or very famous Fujifilm motion picture stock. And I always wonder, like, is this kind of stuff a gimmick? Is it better just to shoot in log and then just grade however you want, and you can probably make that look in post and blah, blah, blah. And you can do that. They're actually going to give you a LUT that you can use in post. So you can still shoot in F-Log,
so great.
And then you just apply the Eterna LUT after if you want, and that'll give you some enhanced dynamic range. But I really wanted to see what the Eterna does internally and what the dynamic range is like and what the colors are like. And so the whole dancing sequence I shot with our dancer Jessie, I shot with that film emulation, and I'm usually super hesitant to do that. Like I have commitment issues, and if I don't have to commit to a certain dynamic range or lock me into a certain color, I won't. But I gotta say, I'm really impressed. Like the colors are amazing, the contrast is amazing, and I still was pretty happy with the range that I got out of it. And yeah, so super impressive. I would say that if I owned this camera, I would be shooting video in that Eterna profile probably quite a bit. So the other really big thing with this camera is, and I don't know how much it applied to you in terms of the shutter speeds that you're shooting with handheld, but they have IBIS, so internal body image stabilization. And so it's 5-axis. It works in tandem with the camera lenses that have stabilization in them, or will work with a still lens that is fully manual, that type of thing, offer 3 axes. So I'm still working on trusting internal stabilization. I'm so used to putting things on gimbals and trusting the gimbal that I started the dance video on the gimbal, and then when we got close to time's up and I had to roll out of there, I was like, let me grab the camera, let me see what the IBIS does, and I was actually quite impressed just hand holding how stable that actually is. So I know for video work that's pretty impressive, because you kind of, I don't want to say you don't need a gimbal anymore. Gimbals are definitely super important, and they fill a very important niche.
But you don't always have a gimbal.
But you don't always have one. And if you're an event shooter, for example, and you just have a monopod and you're running around a wedding, you don't need to futz with like balancing a gimbal, like go, go, go. Or if you're in the field, you're a correspondent, a journalist, that type of thing, and you just want to get some fairly stable footage of something happening, it's going to give that to you. Yeah. So from a video perspective, it was actually quite impressive. Did you notice you were able to shoot like, below 1/60th of a second or anything like that?
Actually, and I think that's like every major camera manufacturer should be doing this now. I don't know why not everyone is. This is for me, especially like the last look was getting later in the day, the sunlight started to come through. Right. So, we took the gobos out of the window, and it was just dark enough that I think I was like hand holding at like 60th at like f4 or something. Right. And, that's like danger area, especially where I want these to get published. So, but no, it was great. You'd really tell. And then I did a little test that was just like, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, I remember standing there going, yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. So, this is also a technology that exists in just about every new camera coming out. So it's not like revolutionary, but the fact that Fuji is saying we're serious about this, we're going to put this into our cameras, and they do such a great job of it. Yeah, in terms of like the updates to this camera, if you're an X-T2 shooter, it doesn't seem like it's a revolutionary change. Like you're being like, what's this new camera? I don't understand it. It's very, very similar. It's just like really X-T2 on steroids with a little bit of borrowing from the GFX, like the display on top here.
Which is great, actually.
Yeah. Did you have any experience with that at all? Like in terms of like,
honestly, it made it, I didn't expect it to. I was like, oh, okay, display, okay, that's nice. But actually, in practice, immediately, that's all I looked at every time. Like,
wow.
Yeah, a lot of little improvements.
And one of the things too that they've added from the XE3 and I think the GFX as well is that the screen is now swipeable, so it's gestures, and you can program the gestures. I never used that because I'm just so intuitively a buttons guy. Like it's such a new feature, new idea that I just don't even think to use it. But it's pretty cool. I think once you start harnessing that and start making a point to use it, maybe it becomes...
Oh yeah, you kind of showed me, because I thought it was just like, pinch and zoom, pinch and expand, but then you were like going through all the info displays, and I was like, oh, that's like the thing that slows me down that always bothers me. Like, actually so, useful.
But I don't know, right? Because if your eye's always in it, like how much are you gonna do that? I don't know. I still find that what drives me towards Fuji compared to everybody else, like when I look at the A7S or when any of the Sony cameras or Panasonic. Panasonic's pretty good, but Fuji seems like they kind of are Apple-esque in terms of like they put design as a priority. They really think about a simple, very clean, easy to understand, easy to use design. And so if going to a touchscreen for me just feels like I'm walking away from that. And what I love about Fuji is the fact that the backs of these cameras, there's like nothing to it. And it's fast to use. You're not searching. The back of a Sony camera is like trying to program the space station. It's crazy. So I really like the design of Fuji, and that's what draws me to them. But I think the really exciting thing about this camera is its price point. So you can get just the body itself for $24.49 Canadian. Now, if you're a video shooter, though, you're going to want to add that extra grip, and I have that grip here. So this is the extra grip which you used. Now, if you're a video shooter, you're going to want the extra grip for a couple reasons. One is Fuji batteries, especially in video, 4K video, they don't last very long. I find it burns out pretty fast. In fact, just a photo shoot with it, I drained a battery pretty quick. And so you get, with the grip is only an additional, I think it's $27.99 with the grip, and the grip actually comes with 3 batteries. So you get the battery that's in the original camera plus the batteries that are in here. But if you're a video shooter, you're going to need it as well because this is where the audio port is. So the audio out. So if you want to be able to monitor your audio, you're going to need the battery grip. Audio in, of course, is in here. Speaking of audio, since we're wrapping up, but I just thought of this now, another really cool feature is that you actually have 2 audio channels. So you can record the in-camera audio plus your external audio that goes in and control those levels separately, which is, I think, the first DSLR I know of that does that. I haven't played with a DSLR that does that yet other than this one, which is a great feature. So you can have scratch audio or environmental audio and then lav audio or something like that, or boom. So it's really great for that. Any last thoughts from you?
Just quickly.
Yeah.
I'd never used the grip before,
Yeah.
like on the XT2, and I know it's the same, but for anyone else that hasn't noticed, like if you use the grip on the Canon, which I think a lot of people have, you don't need to take off the little battery door.
Right.
Because like the whole thing slots into the battery. Like
right.
this, you're getting an extra battery, and you don't have to worry about losing your door, which it happens every time. And then I can't use it without the grip. Little things like that. Yeah.
Doesn't make a big deal. A contentious issue is always with any camera is the menu system. And I'm constantly switching around from Sony to Panasonic to Canon to Fuji. And there isn't anyone that really tends to like win out. There are always some issues I have with menu systems. And that's just, I think, a DSLR. You've got to hide all the things that you need in a menu. You can't put it on buttons. What was your experience like as a photographer?
It was a little arduous to get through all the menus sometimes, and I'm used to the XT2 menu. I understand how it works. It's the same. But Fuji does a good job, and I understand the structure and the way they do it. But it sometimes it's buried under menu, under menu, under menu, under menu. So it can be a bit much. I think there's room for improvement there. Yeah.
Like nobody's menu system seems to make any sense to me, right? I think it's one of the things that when you pick a camera and you get used to it, you know where everything is. But when I'm bouncing between cameras all the time, like I spend 80% of my time going, where is this thing? Why is it there? Like, why is it there? It doesn't make any sense for it to be there, it's, I think what Fuji does really well is the exterior design. But I think, you're right, the menu does need a little bit more improvement as well. Any last thoughts about Fuji and the camera?
Just like the way they're going. You said it, I think, really well when you said they seem to be design first without compromise, to be honest. It's the first mirrorless I've ever used that feels like it would replace my SLR. Yeah, and that's honest.
Very cool. Well, that's it, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to our boys here at Surf the Greats for hosting us again, and thank you, Nick, for trying the camera and playing around with it. That was a fun photo shoot that I got to.
That was great.
It's great to witness you in action. That was very exciting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I hope you guys get a chance to try the camera. It's a fantastic thing when it comes out. So that's it. Happy shooting. High five.
Boom.
Bam.
Love it.